Music is more than lyrics. It's the stories that connect artists and audiences. It's life experiences and hopes imagined. I'm Malaika and this is the story behind. Today we'll be talking to Jabulile Majola about his EP, Isitifiketi. I hope you enjoy. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat. Just to give you some of background, I'm Malaika, just graduated uni, and I've been doing translations on TikTok for a while, but I've started to notice there's a lot of the story that goes missing when you translate something from like Inguni language to English. There's a lot of the story that goes missing. Wanted to start a new series called The Story Behind, where I talk to artists and ask them about the story behind the project that they're making, the music that they're making, so that people can get more of a sense of what's going through. And I listened to your EP, very beautiful body of work, and I thought you would be the perfect person to start with because your EP is a story. It feels like a personal archive, and I just wanted to ask you a couple of questions about that EP. Firstly, I would love if you could introduce yourself, and how you got started into this.
So my name is Jabulile Majola. My birth certificate name or biological name is Jabulani Majola. I call myself Jabulile Majola because that's my biological mother's name. That's all I know about her. I was born in Pietermaritzburg, and 3 days after my birth, she disappeared without a trace. And so I grew up in a children's home alongside 26 other siblings that have a similar story to mine. So we were adopted. And I grew up on a farm kind of setting. An evangelist started this children's home, and there was a time where he started funding this farm school that I ended up going to for primary school. And it was a predominantly Zulu school. That's really where I learned how to speak isiZulu. That's also where I learned how to read isiZulu and also think in isiZulu, because when you hear folk tales, you need to be able to imagine in that way. That's what makes everything super real.
So you just mentioned folk tales, and I've read and heard that you describe yourself as an Afro folk artist or an Afro soul artist.
Yeah.
And when I think of folk music, I think of oral traditions and storytelling. And there's an overarching story when you listen to Isitifiketi. And I just was wondering how your tradition of storytelling began and how you incorporated throughout this project.
I think the African way of life is very much transferred in with word of mouth. I noticed that it's through the stories that we actually grow, especially in our imagination, especially in the way in which we speak. It's something that actually strengthens the way you see yourself within the culture as well. And I noticed that it also connects people in a broader sense, because like a Tswana person would have heard the similar stories in their native language. A Sotho person would have heard those stories as well in their own native language. I noticed that the power of storytelling has a way of actually opening the window into an experience that you've not lived, but then it also makes you a participant. Even if you are a spectator, you are able to have a perspective and have somewhat an opinion. And so I've seen how important storytelling has been in my life. And the way in which I wrote Isitifiketi is to basically talk about who I am, but not in a direct way where I'm like, this is Jabulile Majola, this is where I come from. I basically use all of these different elements that actually form who I am today. And not just who I am today. As I said, it connects different people. Different people have heard similar stories. It actually tells of who we are without saying this is what we are.
You can definitely feel that when you hear different songs in Isitifiketi. Like some feel very much like Ujabulile Lona, and then other ones are like, this is who we are as people. These are stories, like you said, that connect us. And on that point, do you feel like these stories that you're telling are more powerful because you're saying them or singing them in Zulu? Or do you feel like you'd be able to have the same impact in English? Because I know you said you started thinking in Zulu, feeling in Zulu at a young age. Do you feel like that translation happens only because you're able to like create this in Zulu?
I do believe it's stronger within the Nguni language. However, I would say it is also strong with it in English, but I think it loses the essence, so it loses the meaning of what it's made out to be.
Mm,
There's a point where I think even if I translate it in any other language that is not maybe Nguni, it would lose the sense of what it's about. Every language has that foundation that actually when you start to translate it, it will lose. There's such a purpose or like it's such an intention about how language was structured. It's
mm,
actually weird because I don't feel like there was literally somebody being like, I'm going to structure it like this. This is going to be the foundation. But I noticed that when you translate it, it has a power, but it has a sense of a, I don't know, there's a wall that sort of forms around it. It constricts it to some extent.
mm,
I remember when we were translating my lyrics, there are some points where we actually used Chat GBT because I'm like, if I directly translate it, it's got power, but it loses the actual meaning of what I'm trying to say.
mm,
You know, it made me realize that it's not impossible to translate anything, but it's very possible that you will always lose the intention of why you write it in a different language. It shows you that whilst the cultures or the different languages sort of work with together when it comes to translating, they are also heavily in conflict with one another. And
mm,
so that is I would say it's like a paradox. It works, but then at the same time, it really does not work. There's
mm,
certain points where I've actually been very reluctant to even try and translate what
mm,
I'm saying. I would want to rather translate it in maybe talking about it, but then also maybe making a visual that is completely different to what I'm saying. That
mm,
would actually, it's like if you could dance your song, it would make more sense in English than it would if you tried to translate it in English. You know,
mm.
or if I could drag you into that experience that I'm talking about and you see it for yourself, that's the only way it will actually really, really make sense. And I think the reason why we are able to translate is because even with us, when we are writing, we are translating what we are really thinking. So you're not really getting the full picture of what we're thinking. We are trying to put it in words. And so I think that's something that we will never be able to do as artists. And I mean, translating is the hopeful part of it, where we are at least trying to be understood.
You verbalized what I felt when I thought like why I had to make this a series because in translating other people's music, I'm like, firstly, I'm not the artist, so I don't know what was in your brain
Yeah.
fully when you were making those lyrics, when you were making the story. Secondly, there's something like Zulu astrology, like you can't say some things in Zulu in English, like it just doesn't, it loses its essence,
Yeah,
you said.
definitely.
And so you verbalized that perfectly. And one of the songs on your EP that I felt a lot of people are like, oh, you have to translate Isnege, you have to translate Isnege. And I was like, this
Nice.
is such a song that like you would have to hear it from the artists themselves. And what I can only like describe it as like a petition for patience, but patience in so many different ways. And I just
Yeah.
want to know how you took that petition and made it into like the song that it is, you and Tando Zidix. I know there is a romantic element, but there's also a communal element. And so I'd love to hear the story behind
Yes.
how Isinege came through.
People like you should be the ones that actually ask us these questions, because I think it's nice when someone has a sense of an understanding of what they think of the song already, as opposed to somebody that you have to explain everything. Because I don't know, man, there's a sense of research that we need to approach music with.
Mm,
I've been listening to a lot of Upoloja even. You know, like I love how he sings,
mhm,
but there's a sense of an understanding I have of his music. I know exactly what I would ask him. I listen to Afrikaans music as well. I
mhm,
find myself wanting to, the questions that I ask people, because I try to translate their lyrics, I want to know what they're saying so that when I ask them, I want to know exactly where you are. Why did you say this? And so kudos to you for that, for having that research way of listening to music as well. It's very important,
mhm.
because it is deeper than what it seems sometimes. And so when I wrote Isinege, it was basically about relationship. And it's so crazy because I mean, I'm now married, but like at the time, I
Congratulations.
wasn't necessarily talking about, thank you. I wasn't necessarily talking about my relationship, but I was talking about where I see myself sometimes as a person. I think when as individuals, we will never know that you don't have patience until you're living with people. Then you start to realize, oh, flip, an element of us where we really fall short on that side of patience. And the crazy thing is that we are now moving into a world that is very individualistic, that is very, I can do it myself, a very independent world. An independent world to me is not very much a patient world. Because if I can get it now, I will get it. I don't need anybody. You know what I'm saying? I don't need to wait on anybody. The more convenient life becomes, the less patience we tend to have. And I noticed that filters into our relationships, and it starts there. As it starts from an individual perspective, it flows into the next person, and then eventually filters into the whole community and society and nation.
Mhm.
So when I wrote the song, it was just a song between two people. And I love how Tandozide came and actually brought a communal perspective, because that's exactly how every single thing that affects us as a society now starts. When you hear about the story of Adam and Eve, it's something that started between two people and it ended up impacting generations.
So that's very beautiful and very important, like you said, especially in this time that we're living in, especially
Mm,
in communities. And when I think of
mm.
communities as well, it makes me think of, I think one of your most recognizable songs to me is Wasam Danami.
Wazamtana, Ioniye, Tandola, Wazamtana, Iuni, Ubambola, Wazamtana, Ioniye, Utandola, Wazamtana, Iuni, Ubambola.
When I listen to it, it like makes me think of coming home and having love and having that community. And as you mentioned, you have
Yeah.
a very like like a less traditional home story of being in that group home. And so I wondered like
Mm.
how that informed this song and how your experience with love and home and family and community helped you making the song or helped you understand what you were doing when you're writing Wasam Tanami.
What I'm learning is that you can't give what you don't have,
Mm,
but you can receive what you don't have. And so that's where I've noticed that like there's a certain form of love that I've only gotten used to, certain form of discipline, certain way of life that I was only used to, and I could only give from that place.
mm,
But the new way in which I'm expressing myself and in the way in which I'm taking care of people is something that I've also had to learn. There's things
mm,
that you have to unlearn, but then there's also things that you have to just enhance because they're there, but it's just that you have to sort of learn how to be more giving of them. And I grew up with so many siblings, and I think one thing that you learn when you grow up with so many people is that everybody has their own personality, everybody has their own strength and weakness. You learn to share. It's something that you have to learn, or otherwise you'll just have the most terrible life. You learn to share, whether you like it or not. It's just something that is there within you. You learn to be aware of other people's emotion and all of those things, but you also learn to express yourself. I think for me, that's one of the things that I really learned how to do from a young age. And I only saw love in a certain way
mm,
because that's what I was surrounded with at the time. I think when you grow up in a some would call it an orphanage, when you grow up in a children's home, you learn that there's a lot of hurt. I don't think you see it because you're also going through your own things and whatnot. But I think there's a sense of feeling like just part of the line, part of the queue. You are
mm,
just a number because there's so many people that are being taken care of. So I don't think that makes you feel like destroying yourself immediately, but I think when you grow up and you finally get to a point in your life where you're thinking for yourself and you are receiving love, like I think a boyfriend girlfriend relationship or that like romantic relationships really help you understand what you have and
mm,
what you don't have and what you need to actually learn. And so what Amdana for me is about taking time to actually take care of somebody. You know,
Mm,
I think we only see love as like, oh, let me just give you roses, let me just do this, let me do that. But so many of us are we're doing that stuff, but we are so absent in the way in which we see the person.
mm,
Because love actually is not selfish at all. Love is fully giving somebody what, yes, what you have and what you are yet to have. Because and that's very much about staying. It's about being present. So what I'm done more than anything is something that I know that I don't know, I was learning because I noticed that you can speak love over somebody, but that you can also give love. And it's not necessarily always on you, but it's always on the other person as well, on how they receive that love. You
mm.
know, because I come from a home also where we were given love. It's not something that we were starved of, but
Yeah.
we were not in that place. At least for me, I was not in that place to actually receive love for what it was. And so was I'm done. It's not a very, it's a specific song in that I'm noticing that love takes time. Love requires a lot of time to actually take care of the person. And those are the new things that I'm learning.
That's really beautiful. That you just added like three extra layers to the song for me. You added like now you
Yeah,
go back, listen to it, be like, how am I giving? How am I receiving love? And I think that's the very important
yeah,
part is the receiving love portion of it because it's very easy for you
yeah,
to give love. It's very easy for people to love you, but like unless you're receiving it in the way
yeah.
intended, it's very hard for it to feel, right?
Yeah.
And I
And
think
sorry to cut you off,
yeah, go ahead.
Malaika. You know, I went through a point in my life where I was really going through a lot of things, a lot of anxiety, all sorts of things.
Mhm.
And I'm a believer, I've gone through like a whole journey where I felt like God was like really working with me in this. I wrote this song, Who Was I'm Done, and I was not in that place where I had realized all of these things that I've just mentioned, like the time that we actually take in giving love and all of those things. And by the way, the only reason why I feel like a song like that would come out is because I was actually looking at my best friend, one of my best friends' daughter, and you're
Mhm.
like, Flip, look at this pure soul. The only thing that her father can do is just give her love. She
Yeah.
doesn't have to ask for it. That's a defenseless baby. All they need is love. You know what I'm saying? All they need is to be taken care of because they don't know how to make decisions for themselves. They don't know how to cook for themselves. They don't know how to do all of these things just yet. And the only thing that's where the heart learns to do these things because some of us, we don't know how to do them. We were never taught that. Our heart needs to be open to go a million miles for this person and to the point where they can actually have enough to actually give to others. When a child is at school in grade 2, he's learning to give from what he has, sharing and being hospitable to their friends. Um, I went through this journey in my life where I learned even forgiveness and unforgiveness. And so what I then found myself doing, I found myself calling a lot of people that caused me hurt maybe when I was a child, but also people that I might have caused hurt because of my inability to receive and express love, in my inability to receive patience and also express patience. And I found that, you know, the pain that we go through when we were younger or in our past is inexcusable. The people shouldn't have done that. But the healing, our healing and going through that journey is also inexcusable. We have no excuse but to go through the journey. And it's a very tough journey. And I noticed that there's a point where you're faced with a choice. You're either gonna go through it or you're gonna um, you're going to basically deny that journey and just live through your pain. Now,
Mm,
the chances are you'll still succeed and live an absolutely amazing life. But until you actually face those things that cripple you from actually growing into the person that you're created to be, that's where the power is. I spoke to a preacher who after our conversation died like a month later and whatnot. It was a very powerful conversation. And he
mm,
said, Jabulani, with all that you have gone through, you have all the excuses to be a bad person. But
mm,
the power is in the choice that where you choose to do the opposite. And
mm,
when you choose to do the opposite, you'll basically have to open yourself up. That's where the heart of stone turns to a heart of flesh. When you are willing to, after all of this pain, after all this hurt, to open your heart again, to trust the unknown, to do the things that are not natural to do when you've been hurt so much, you know.
Mm,
And so for me, that's where that's where the power, I feel like that's where the power of what I preach came in, because it's like I'm not only speaking this cool stuff, but I'm only living it.
mm,
And living it, it hurts so bad. But the fruit of it, what comes to you whilst living like that, that's what causes the impact. That's what actually changes other people's lives. Because
yeah.
people are literally going through what you've gone through as well. You can't tell me that there's a single person on this earth that hasn't experienced hurt,
Mm,
whatever degree it came in.
mm,
Everybody has experienced it. And when you decide to be that beacon of hope, a beacon of healing, and going through your trauma, going through that stuff, you actually become that flickering light. Hey, you can make it too.
mm,
But then it's the choice. The choice is the most powerful thing. When you wake up in the morning and you say, you know what, today I will choose to see the sun and say it is beautiful, instead of being like, oh, my life has never changed. It's always gloomy. It's always dark. There's just that choice that
mm.
we make, where that actually chokes out the excuses, because sometimes excuses choke up the choice to
Yeah.
actually live, the choice to actually see the light.
You've mentioned how you have like this journey of faith that you had, and I feel like it's very
Yeah.
apparent throughout the EP. And then like you close it with like Uyinkosi Yamakosi, that beautiful, beautiful harmonies on that,
Yeah.
lettering on that, beautiful.
Uyinkosi yamakhosi ungumdali zonke izizwe zidumisa wena.
Thank you.
Um, but do you feel like your art is a vehicle for the message, for the gospel? I know like it's very hard to be like, oh, this is gospel music. I feel like any music that is glorified
Mm,
is gospel music, in my opinion. But do you ever
yeah.
feel like your stories and the music that you're making is a vehicle for this message? And do you feel pressure to do that, or do you feel like it comes naturally because that faith is part of your story?
At first, because I never understood where I was at with God and who I was in God, it is something that was very contrived. I felt like I had to do it. And
Hmm.
I don't believe that where the Bible says where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. I
Hmm.
don't believe it should be that point where it's like I must show people that I'm doing this and I am of the faith or whatever.
Hmm.
It's something that started coming out naturally. I think there's a point where I realized, I mean, I had 6 songs within the EP and I'm like, okay, I'm all good and whatnot. And I wanted to do a cover. And there's a couple of covers that I've been doing, songs that I like. I don't just do a song because I'm like, oh, it's a worship song. People are gonna know that I'm a Christian. No. There's other secular songs that I genuinely like. And this one is something that started coming back to me. It's a song, it's one of the first songs that I sang as a child, where I developed a passion for singing, you know, at about the age of 6, 7, 8. It's something it's a song that I really liked. I went back to that because within the whole EP, I felt like I had said everything that I wanted to say. And I
Hmm.
just wanted to step aside and give people the reason as to why I do what I do. You know, I more and more as I live my life, the more I start to see the importance of hope. And I
Hmm.
don't see hope as like, oh, tomorrow it might be a better day. I see hope as an anchor for wherever you are at now. It's this thing of your reality right now is that your life sucks, but you will get through, because the light is within the tunnel. It's not at the end of the tunnel. You can find life even in this death situation that you're finding yourself in. You know, when someone is in the coma, you don't hope that they're gonna wake up. You hope that even in that state, there is enough strength for them to fight and stand against whatever is sort of causing them that pain, or has put them in that place. And
Hmm.
so the human spirit doesn't need that, oh, at some point it's gonna happen. It's some point, because sometimes that can be very pipe dream-ish.
Yeah.
But like when people can know that there is something that we are holding on to now, and that's something that is going to sustain us. Whether it's light outside, we will have hope. Whether it's dark outside, we will have hope. For me, when that became a reality, it's something that I don't even have to sing a worship song for you to know that there's hope out there. It's literally the life that I live. Because
Hmm.
number one, gospel, it's not a genre, it's a message. But then also a life that is devoted to God is not about, okay, I'm going to stand on stage and worship. No, no, no. Worship it happens everywhere. So when I'm cooking, I'm worshiping. You know what I'm saying? It's everything done unto the Lord. And so when I started to know that even when I'm walking, it's not being like, okay, let me find a way to walk worshiping. No, no, no. It's being instead of doing. So it was very easy to put that song because it's like I'm not also lying and saying it's my favorite song. No, it's genuinely something that I am. Well, and it's so crazy because when I'm doing my shows, I do most of my shows in English sometimes. Sometimes I do them in Zulu, but it just goes to show I'm trying to constantly show people like, hey, I just am what I am, and if you don't agree with it, it's fine. If you agree with it, it's also cool. I'm not. If people decided tomorrow, hey, we don't want to listen to music anymore, we think it sucks, I'm not going to try and convince them otherwise. It's their choice. You know what I'm saying? So everything is got to do with like being genuine and being present. Also, I learned something new recently. I think maybe 2 years ago. I learned how to be present when I'm performing. Literally, right now I'm performing and that's all I'm doing. Right now I'm with the people and that's all I'm doing. When I learned that, I realized that for a long time I was just doing something, but I'm not really in that moment. I'm doing it because, oh, I'm supposed to do this thing. When I'm performing, I'm supposed to be here. And so I'm learning to notice every mistake and be cool with it. I'm also learning to notice when people make noises and they maybe, I don't know, snicker or be like, oh wow, or cry. I'm learning to be in that and actually experience that. When people don't like any song that I'm doing and they're being loud and they're doing their thing, I'm also learning to appreciate it because that's just what is happening in that moment. Being present is also learning not to try and control everything. You're just doing what you need to do. When you were a child, you literally did what you needed to do. You weren't thinking of, okay, what am I going to do in the future? What am I going to eat after this? Where did I come from? And all of those things. You're just in that moment. And I noticed that the more present you are, you just don't worry at the same time. You just do what you need to do in that moment.
I feel like that's important as a performer to be present and to like experience your performance because I feel like no matter how many times
Yeah,
you sing a song, every single time you sing it, it's going to be different, and every crowd that you sing it for is going to be different.
exactly.
Like you said, you're telling stories for a
Yeah,
community, and so every single person you touch will
yeah.
be different. And so it's a blessing to be in that moment. It's a blessing to sing for those people. It's a blessing to experience how they experience your art. And I think it's like really beautiful that you like prioritize being present
Yeah.
and just like you said, being is an act of worship, and having that as your constant state is really beautiful. And I really appreciate that. Um,
Definitely.
yeah, so those are like the main questions that I had. I really appreciate
Mm.
taking the time to talk. I know you're performing in a couple of places this month. If you want to plug that.
I'm playing at Nirox on the 15th of June, and then I'm playing at Fete La Musique in Joburg. Both of these shows are in Joburg, and then a very important thing that I'm doing, it's very important to me. I'm going to start a tour in August,
August.
and it's going to be you're the first person that is finding out about this, but it's a tour for all the remote places because as I said, I come from a small farm town. Not many amazing things happen there, like the similar to you have a Nirox, you have a Fete La Musique. Like everybody in Joburg just gets all of these pretty cool artists, even international ones. But in the smaller towns, you won't hear a Kendrick Lamar in Greytown.
Yeah.
And so so my heart is to go to people with the music instead of being like, oh, I'm going to be in Joburg. Come from your little villages and come and see me. No, I'm wanting to go to the people. And it's something that is very important because that's what hope is about. Hope is the equalizer. Everybody and a mama need hope. And so what if we actually took the hope within to these communities? It's really what I'm wanting to do with this EP. I want to always take the music to the people, take the music, take the experiences, take the stories, take the message of hope to the people.
Mina cela isineke ezintweni eziphume emlonyeni yethu yekela intatheli ondabeni abahlele emasongweni ethi ekuseni ungamameli nezinto enhle cela uphephe emphefumulweni noma ingubo yathemba iphele emphethweni